My name is Shawn Kittlesen. I'm a writer from Los Angeles, California, although I'm originally born and raised in upstate New York, and that's where I was adopted at birth in Syracuse. And I have recently, over the last 2 years, reunited with over 100 people from my birth family. Uh, yeah.
Wow. So let's start by how did you decide what was I'll call it a trigger, or what was that spark that got you to decide to start looking for those 100 people that you ended up finding?
So the spark was actually, it was about, I would say 8 or 9 years ago. My wife and I had moved out to California. We were working out here and thinking about starting a family of our own. And I was listening to NPR
Okay.
on like one of my long commutes home one day, and there was a story, and it was mothers of loss speaking about their experiences placing their children, and it broke me down in a way that no testimony ever had before, and just kind of this sense that I had always had that I was interested in learning more about my identity at that point was, I guess the spark was lit in a much stronger fashion. Like there was a spark there, and then that was pouring gas on that spark.
So obviously from the synopsis that we see that your story ended up on TLC. How did it go from you're in a car listening to NPR and now my story is on TLC? I mean, I know that's probably a really long, probably longer than just a few minutes, but how did that get to there? Like everyone's got stories, but they don't end up on TLC most of the time.
No. It took a lot longer. It took, almost a decade of searching and both using every online method that I could find, reaching out to different free resources, friends and family and connections, and searching yearbooks and databases. And I'm a fairly resourceful researcher, so I actually had a pretty big list of names that I had built up of potential people who could be my parents. And the thing that was, I guess, the information that I had that I knew that I could use from an early point was that I had the date of birth, or a date of birth, for my mother. Okay. And finding that and this was information that my mom and dad gave to me when I was very, very young and always made available to me and never hid from me. So I grew up knowing that this was out there, and that I would have my family's support if I chose this path. So with that behind me, it was just a long experience of frustrating, investigating, and coming up with nothing. And eventually it was actually DNA and years of DNA testing that eventually led to a match on GEDmatch.com, which then led to Ancestry and a whole flood of information. And then through that, I found my birth mother's birth family. This is the easiest way to describe it.
Right.
Because it turns out that I was placed for adoption by a fellow adoptee. And through DNA, I found the genetic relatives that she had never found or known, and who had only heard of her in rumors. That was a bombshell that went off of sorts. And that was the beginning of this cycle. That was 2 years ago now. So after, I would say, 6-7 years of hard searching and coming up with nothing, suddenly I came up with this huge Italian family in Syracuse. And they welcomed me into their hearts and their homes and their lives. And I reciprocated that 100%. And from there, the impetus was, all right, we got to finish this search, finish this story. And that was the point where I had a friend out here in LA who
that's it.
That's it. The producers had said, like, your story, my friends would love your story. Like, please, like, submit and just like tell me so that I can say, like, hey, look at this one. This is a good story. and I submitted, and they gave me a call back. I got a call from, it was a long process though. We don't have to go through that. The classic process for long lost family is like, you don't just get the call and it's done. It's months.
Right.
Who knows what's going to happen.
Right. What do you find is the most important issues, things that you want to drive home to people to understand from your point of view about I know you're an advocate for adoptee rights, and
yes,
what are your key issues that you like to make sure people know about as an adoptee?
So I think, it's for a lot of people, the idea of reunion is terrifying because of all the unknowns. And I have been one of those people. There was a long period in my life where I was not ready or prepared to go on the journey that I've gone through over the last few years. And so I think that, the most important thing is being right with yourself before you go looking for anyone else. Because you need to be able to bring a sense that you're not looking to take anything from someone. You're not looking to give anything to someone. Exactly. You're kind of just looking to meet people and find out who they are on their own merits. And that being able to come to that place and feel that way was not something that I think I had as a younger person or a younger man. I don't think that without the support of the friends and family that I had around me throughout the process that I could have undertaken it. So I think what I like to speak about the most with people is, hey, here's how to prepare yourself to reunite and go on the search. And here's the kinds of hardships that you will face.
Right.
And here's how I overcame those. And on the other side of it, found so much love and so much connection that I never expected. And now that I'm here, what do you do with all of that?
Exactly.
And so I've had a lot of time processing this. I'm still working on it and sharing that with the community that I think understands these moments in a way that the mainstream cannot.
Correct.
These are not common experiences. These are extraordinary experiences, and we live them. For other people, their stories. For me, the story of Superman was very key. I'm best known as a comic books and video game writer. I started my career at DC Comics. My entire life, in many ways, was driven by aspiring to be like Superman because he was adopted like me. And I think everyone who is an adoptee or who has placed a child for adoption or who has adopted a child, everyone in this process is a superhero and lives the equivalent of a superhero origin story, because you are called to give up parts of yourself and to explore aspects of who you are and what forms your identity in a way that most people never have to consider in their lives. And it's not something that you do alone. It's something that you do with your family, and that everyone who is touched by this process is involved in. And I think I have seen it bring out the best in people. And I like to share my experience of that so that people know that, yes, there are times when reunion does not work. And there are sad truths and tragedies waiting for all of us on the other side of that vast, that place where we cannot see over that horizon.
Right.
Yes, there's always going to be something that you wish you hadn't found, but there's so much to find that you don't know is there.
Right.
And there's an opportunity for so much love and so much compassion for you to find and share with other people who you have this moment, this trauma in common with.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what exactly, when you do speaking engagements, do you speak about different things, or do you speak mostly about what you're going to speak at the conference? And if so, what are you going to share with us? Obviously, don't tell everybody all the nooks and crannies. You don't want to give all your secrets away. But yeah, just something.
So, I don't usually speak about this stuff. This is.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, okay. That's good information. Okay. All right.
I usually am asked to speak about comic books and video
games. Nice.
And fun, and I guess almost frivolous things. But the way that I approach those frivolous things has always been through, I think, the lens of how do stories that we tell for entertainment or for other purposes, how do they affect us, and how do they impact us, and how do they change our lives? Right. And stories form the core of our identities. So I have spent my entire career as a writer and a creative executive trying to tell stories that will reach a broad audience of people and help them understand. And I think what I'm very excited about for this keynote is an opportunity to tell a smaller story, and a more personal story, with an audience of people who I know share so many of these emotions and have been through so many of these common experiences. And so for me, this keynote is an opportunity for us all to come together and reflect on what these journeys mean to us and what these journeys can mean for us going forward. Because reunion doesn't stop. Right. And that's the longer and broader message that I think everyone who has been through it understands, is that it's not a book that you read
and then you put away.
And you close it and you put it on the shelf and you're just like, I read that book once and now it's there. It's a book that you open, and then as you keep turning the pages, more pages
start to form.
Yeah. So what do we do with that? And I think that just being able to present my thoughts on that and present the journey that I've had. Because I know it's funny to me. It's almost like Pee-wee at the end of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where there's a movie playing of the adventure they just had because Warner Brothers made a movie out of it, and Pee-wee's finally got the girl, and Dottie goes, Pee-wee, don't you want to watch the movie? And he goes, I don't need to. I lived it. Like that's how all of us who have been through these experiences know that feeling, because people look at you and your life and what you've been through and they say, oh my goodness, like, how can you handle that? And you just say, I don't have a choice.
Yeah, well, I can definitely understand that part right now.
Yeah, like I didn't go to the Situation store and pick this one and say, this is my life.
Yes, I understand that too.
I was placed in a situation and I have to handle it in my own way. And I think that the way that you see people in this community, people that are facing illnesses like you are right now, when it does actually reveal the heroes that are in all of us, because it calls us to dig deeper than we would have to if we were just going through life without any obstacles and without any challenges.
Correct.
So yeah, those challenges are what make us
who we are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have had the best experience of adoption that is possible, because the family that I was placed with, my family, my mom and dad and my sister, that was the best possible foundation for me and for my life. Okay. And the person who I am, I owe to them in so many ways. And now I found all these other people who are also a part of me and have also given me something that has brought me here to who I am. Right. We are not just one thing or the other. We're not just nature. We're not just nurture. We are really complex composites of all of those things. And so if you've been afraid to find out what all those pieces are, it's okay to be afraid of that. It's okay to have that fear, because that is the fear that all of us feel. Right. But no matter what you find in your matrix, you can come away with a deeper sense of who you are and a deeper value for what you have, because it's not about finding anything or any information that is going to replace the information that you have about who you are and where you've come from. The family that you grow up with and the life that you form with them is real and always will be and cannot be replaced. And so a lot of people fear reunions are going to change the families that they have. And I think that can happen if you're not paying attention. But if you are aware you can actually look at it as the family that you have and the family that you had.
Okay.
We're always there. And there is no competition between the two of them.
Okay.
I think it's really, that's hard for a lot of people to grok. It's hard for people to understand.
It is.
There is no point in my journey where I have felt a competition between the two sides of who I am or where my priorities lie. I felt a balance, and that's what I'd like to share with everyone. There is an opportunity for balance here, and it doesn't all have to be frightening. It can actually be really fulfilling. Right. And give you, I have found a sense of peace that I did not have before, and a sense of gratitude for the family that I've known and loved my entire life that I could not have known to have before.
Right. It's just this whole story. It just gives a different perspective, because so many people do have so many bad reunions, bad thoughts, bad things happen. But sometimes it's really nice to see that, yes, there's a good that can come. There is some positive that come. And it's all about perspective in my eyes. Everyone's got a different perspective. Everyone's coming from different places. And it's just good to show just different stories and learning from everybody. That's how I look at it.
The only thing that any of us can control are our own intentions. And I have approached this process with a very profound sense of what my intention was going to be and why I was doing it. And it all goes back to that original NPR interview. Because when I heard the stories of from mothers of loss, what broke me down was not just my sympathy for them and for their pain, but what broke me down was the realization that somewhere out there was a woman who every year on my birthday, when I cried, wondering who she was or who my birth father was, that maybe they were out there, and maybe instead of giving me up, they felt that they had lost me. And maybe I needed to find them and tell them that I'm okay.
Right.
That I wanted to thank them. You know, the thing that people don't understand when you say, like, you know, adoptees don't have the same rights as everyone else. Like, people don't get what you mean. You'll say, well, I don't have access to my original birth certificate. And people will say, well, like, why is that a big deal? Right. And because Superman has always been so important to me, the best way that I think about it is everyone's seen Superman the movie. And everyone knows that Superman, you know, when he's coming of age and before he puts on the suit and the cape for the first time, he goes to the Arctic and he throws the crystal in and he creates the Fortress of Solitude, and he goes inside and Marlon Brando is there as a hologram, and he says to him, like welcome, like, to the Fortress of Solitude, where all of the knowledge is here. What do you want to know? And all Superman wants to know is, who am I? Who am I? And can you imagine if Jor-El's response was, I'd love to tell you, but the state of New York has prevented me from sharing that information unless you have a court order. Like, that's great. That's the end of the movie right there.
All right, sorry.
He's standing there like, are you kidding me? I'm 30 years old. I mean, I can't have that information.
Oh.
And that is the outrage that I have felt for many years as someone who,
I think it's very, very, very important, because many people don't realize when people are sharing it all of it, because people just kind of scroll by and it's Facebook and who cares, and it's just another article, and what's an OBC? I've got one. And then they realize, well, wait a minute, what do you mean there's an amendment? Oh, wait, that's right, I actually don't have. And then they start piecing it together and they realize they don't have the original.
I mean, the New York laws are so screwed up that had I remained as a foster child and not been adopted, I believe that as a foster child, I would have had more access to my own records.
Yeah, weird, right? Weird, right?
Yeah. Which, again, it's like, this is all really all it comes down to. It doesn't affect anyone else but me and my family and the choices that we've all made.
Right. And everyone has to be I actually met someone from the adoptees' rights at a conference once, and she was trying to explain to me that many people don't realize that with laws, that how they change, that even can make or break how your passport goes. I was blown away. I mean, I know that's a totally different topic, but most people don't realize what an original one does for you. And
and there's an assumption that at the time that all parties wanted the adoption to be private as well, right? Whereas, what I have come to find out now that I have reunited with both of my birth parents is that when comparing notes between the information that was given to my mom and dad and the information that was given to my mother and father, it does not match up.
Correct.
And both my mother and father thought that my mom and dad had agreed to share information with me when I was 18, that my mom and dad had never even been provided that information to share.
Nothing to share.
They thought that I was going to get it all and I was going to have it. So both of my biological parents were at 18 believing that, okay, he could probably come around now. He knows who I am. No. And then I didn't.
Oh, no.
Then I turned 30, and for both of them, they said, once I knew you were 30, I kind of gave up on hoping that.
Wow.
So when I showed up at 34, it was a real shock for both.
Wow.
I had really, this ship had really felt like you were never coming because you.
Well, at least you showed up. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
at least it actually happened.
I showed up regardless. They couldn't stop me.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But that's the thing. You have to be relentless and persistent. And it took me almost a decade of very, very, what I would call very effective searching, such that once I gave my information to a private investigator, they said, "You've done a lot of my work for me." Like that felt good. Long Lost Family, once the production was over and I was able to piece together the timeline, we're able to find the names that I've been looking for my whole life within a few weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Awesome.
And all of that effort to obscure something that has brought nothing but a lot of connection for all of us, and actually helped heal a lot of past traumas
that's wonderful.
That have haunted my extended family for years.
That's wonderful. It doesn't necessarily happen for everybody, but you know what? It's great that it happened for you.
But I even believe that, and it sounds terrible, but when it doesn't go as well as it has gone for me, it is still a healing process, because a wound that was open, it closes.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be clean. There might be a little scar, but a wound that was open closes. And that's really important for people to be able to move on and know where to put that information in. If it's information that you want to put in the past and belong in the past, then it can go there.
It can go there. It could go on that shelf.
It can go on. You can put it on.
Put on the shelf if you want. You have to choose it though.
If you find something that's toxic to you in your life, then that's a different story. But if you find something that's positive and beneficial, then
absolutely.